Welcome to Unbiased and On the Fence. I'm Shane. So glad you could join me today. Well, this one is all about the good news I found in the Mandela Effect. And if you're new to the Mandela Effect, you're realizing this is a real phenomenon, you come to the right place, because I've got good news for you. I know at first people have the tendency to sort of freak out about it, and I get it, you know. But once you realize that this is a wake-up call for humanity, this is an indicator of things to come, it makes it a lot easier for you to deal with it, I believe. So in the news, we got wildfires, we got hurricanes, we got earthquakes, volcanoes, space weather, and, you know, coronal mass ejections. They call them CMEs, solar flares on the way to the Earth. And how do you handle all this? Where's the good news in all of this? And I like to take that fear and turn it around into excitement. Is it some kind of God doing this? Is it the government doing it? You know, I don't really know, but I know that there is a higher power of some sort, and we have nothing to worry about. And my life, as a result of the Mandela Effect, I've realized that there's a lot more to life than we realize. I've had to go back to the drawing board. And when I was a kid, in school, we would volunteer to clean the chalkboard at the end of the week and get the sponge out, water, and clean the board. And I sort of had to do that with myself, because when the Mandela Effect happened, I didn't know what the heck was going on. I didn't know if, I just knew that my model for life no longer fit with what was happening. Impossible things were happening, things that in my mind were impossible. So that forced me back to the drawing board. And with that, I began to see how all these things from the time I was as young as I can remember were all pointing to the fact that this was the point of my life that my entire life up to this point had been preparing me for. From my favorite childhood book, Milton the Early Riser, to some of my favorite childhood movies, to Rodin's Thinker statue. I had one of those as a kid. Fist was to the forehead, absolutely sure about that. And all of that was just preparing me for this time now, to realize, to see these changes were in fact really happening. I read through the Bible dozens of times, and so it made it to where I could see the Bible changes happening. And I believe all of this is just a wake-up call for us to realize that what we consider to be reality is different than most people think by default. You know, it's consciousness driven. It's independently and collectively. That's one of the reasons why I try to get away from CERN, because I feel like when you give CERN the credit for what's happening, now no doubt they're into something. They're up to something. I don't know what it is. I don't feel like it's I feel like it could be some dark stuff that they're into. But I feel like when you sort of give them that attention, give them that focus, you're helping fuel whatever it is they're up to. And they're up to something, but I don't believe it's the Mandela Effect. I want to thank everybody for hopping in here. I just realized that I forgot to add some links in there for some of the residue I found. For José actually sent me some of the residue for the song from Mamas and Papas, California Dreamin'. I found numerous links to Residue where they still sang, they still said, began to pray. And I will add those in on the post. So if you're watching live, they're not there yet. But if you're watching this later on, you can find the link below. And you can go see some of these other, because I got REM, I got Nancy Sinatra, and others that still sing it the original way. And even Sia, the current pop star singer right now, she sang it the new way, but she corrected it. Instead of saying pretend to pray, she said pretended to pray in the grammatically proper way of saying it or whatever. So I had I have some stuff to show today dealing with what I'm saying about consciousness and how I don't believe we fully understand what's going on. I think the information's all out there, but we haven't either come across it or it just hasn't been presented in such a way that we can understand how much control we have over the reality we experience. Let's see here. Have you guys ever heard of Cleve Baxter? He was a polygraph examiner way back in the day that figured out that when he connected his electrodes to a plant, they, in fact, I got a picture of him. Let me pull it up here. Yeah. Grover Cleveland Baxter Jr. could always spot a liar, as he liked to tell. This is from the New York Times Magazine. They lit the lives they lived. He talked to plants and they talked back. Now, he figured out that plants would respond to the threat of being harmed. Now, this is going to sound crazy to some of you guys, but this has been proven scientifically. And I'm going to show you in just a second, because this was one thing that was featured on Mythbusters. So I've got a clip I want to play from Mythbusters, because it's funny to see them sort of cracking jokes at the fact of the implications here. So, I'm missing buttons here. What the heck? Stuff's going haywire here. Okay. Oh, that's Dean Radin. We'll get to you in a second, buddy. Back this up a little bit so you can hear them cracking jokes.
Okay, you guys. Plants have feelings. And as an emotional response to a threatening situation, they can even scream.
Is this a myth?
Yeah, yeah. Have you heard this one?
You know, I do remember there was a guy who took plants and hooked them up to a polygraph machine and did some tests.
Well, in fact, back in the late 60s and early 70s, he was a world polygraph expert. He developed this theory that plants, eggs, yogurt, all these things have a way of communicating on an emotional level that we don't even perceive or understand.
The concept of primary perception may be a little out there for some people. It means that all living organisms on Earth, from a whale, a human being, a plant, right down to a single cell, is interconnected, able to feel all sorts of emotions and to communicate with ESP. The theory was developed by the founder of the FBI's polygraph unit, Cleve Baxter.
I've been reading the experiments of Cleve Baxter. When he thought about burning the plant, the needle on the polygraph jumped, as if the plant could actually read his mind.
To put his theory to the test, the team is going to recreate some of his original experiments. First, to see if vegetation really does have feelings, they're going to get a plant, hook it up to a polygraph, subject it to physical and mental stress, and see if they get a reaction.
Grant, do you know how long we've wanted one of these?
Yes.
And I don't mean a box.
One genuine Stolting 22600.
Oh, I hear something rattling already.
The same model polygraph used in the, you guessed it, original Baxter experiments.
Oh, sweet. I saw Meet the Parents. I know how these things work.
Ever done time in prison, Jack?
When humans are in situations of stress, such as telling a lie to someone, the theory is there are often changes to their body. Their heart rate goes up and they sweat more. It's the GSR, or galvanic skin response component of the polygraph, that measures the amount of sweat. It does this by putting out a tiny electrical current that monitors any change in the skin's conductivity. Baxter took the GSR electrodes from the polygraph, attached them to a leaf, and said he could tap into the currents that flow into our green friends. Tori makes a special screw-on clamp to secure the electrode from the polygraph to the leaf of the Dracaena.
Don't worry, little buddy. We're not going to do anything mean to you. Yet.
No, dude.
Sorry, we're not supposed to freak it out?
No.
Okay.
To help block out any accidental electrical interference that could affect the polygraph, like a cell phone going off or a plane flying overhead, they're going to conduct the test inside a shipping container.
We'll take it into the container, which we know acts as a really good shield from radio frequency interference. The camera crew, everybody else will be outside, so all that camera equipment's going to be out there recording us remotely.
Grant and Tori clear their minds
Let's go to our happy place.
and become one with nature.
There's definitely a little deflection there.
A little slap on the leaf caused the needle on the polygraph to move. Could it mean the plant is feeling fear and pain?
Plant's kind of twitching.
Because he knows what's coming.
To up the ouch factor, Tori pulls out the heavy artillery.
Whoa, huge spike.
The needle moved way more when the strength of the attack was increased.
Each time we hit the plant with the fire extinguisher, the needle pinned.
The boys are baffled, but move on to test if plants can read minds. This time, Tori's not going to touch the plant at all. He's just going to imagine hurting it.
Think about something specific to this plant, and I want you to really, you have to really intend to do it. Like, I am going to do this. I'm going to kick your butt.
Ready? Had a good baseline. I gave it a mental picture, picturing it burning on fire.
The needle jumps.
Are you serious? Stop. No way. Tori had a thought, and the plant reacted.
What the heck was that?
I don't know. Okay, you're not touching the plant, is that correct?
No, I'm not touching anything. All I'm doing is I'm staring it down and imagining it in flames.
Is the Dracaena tapping into Tori's consciousness and terrified of being burnt?
Okay, that's it for today.
I mean, I'm not saying I believe this, but
Yeah.
it's kind of hard to dispute the ink.
Even engineer Grant, man of science, is taking off his skeptic cap.
If I were to say that it was a random occurrence, be some pretty amazing coincidences going on.
It boggles the mind.
There you have it. Strange stuff going on there, huh? So just thinking about hurting the plant was causing a response. Now, that gets into the information I had found. Now, see, a lot of this information I had actually come across before the Mandela Effect. And, but the Mandela Effect sort of helped me begin to put all these pieces together, because I realized that reality really is something that we have a lot more control over than we realize. And I think that's the reason why they try to keep us in fear. That's why we've got, you know, the news. If you think about it, if you think about the relationship of bad, evil people in the world to the relationship of, you know, good people, I believe there's a lot more good people. It's just that we only hear about murders and robbings and, you know, you only hear about bad weather and things like that. But I think like this Hurricane Harvey, I was really touched to see how many people, you know, offered their time and their boat and just volunteered to go and rescue people. You know, nobody was like, how much am I getting paid to go? No, people were just happy to go help people, because it's like, you know, we've got all this loving sleeper cells, if you will, of people around. We don't hear about them because, you know, people generally keep to themselves until they see, you know, people are in need of some help. But this brought into mind some of the information that I had come across years ago with the Global Consciousness Project. Now, I don't know if you guys know about this, but and I'll let me let Dean Radin explain this better, because there's a video here, and he sort of gives a background on it. And all of these are linked in the description below.
Is there a direct link between one's intention and the behavior of the world? With an unmediated link, or if mediated, we don't know by what yet. Well, those experiments typically would use very sensitive physical systems, and then you would ask somebody to direct their intention at it and try to push the system around, make it do this versus that. So a prototype example is flip a coin and wish for heads. And now flip a coin, wish for tails. And you can do that experiment, and it has been done many times. And what you see after loads of data is that the statistics of the system that you're working with are biased in the direction that you want the intention to go. So coins are an okay system to work with, but as mechanical things are very difficult to track precisely. So electronic circuits started to be used in the 1960s, where it did the equivalent of coin flipping, only it was flipping bits, random bits. And it could produce bits very quickly, and all of the bits could be recorded precisely. And so you could do an experiment where you have a random number generator going, and you ask somebody to mentally force it to create more ones than zeros. And then now create more zeros and ones, and now let the thing run all by itself as a calibration condition. And what you find after very long period studies like this and meta-analyses looking at many studies by many different people, that there are biases that show up in the randomness. The systems that should be random are no longer behaving randomly. So that's about 50 years worth of study. Then in the 1990s, Roger Nelson at Princeton got the idea that maybe intention was only a piece of the puzzle, and maybe attention was also important. That the act of attending, which when we think of internally, attending is a kind of coherent mental state. You're focusing in on one thing. And if that...
Let me take a break on that right there, because I want to interject something. Get my face back up here. Tracy, it was funny. She left a comment. She's a vegan. What's for dinner tonight? Since the plants feel the harm. Now this is super interesting. I came across this information in David Wilcock's book. I believe it was the source field investigation. Pretty sure it was. I want to get that off my face. Source field investigation by David Wilcock. He said that it was strange because when you thank your food, I mean, we've been told to pray before our food in church, and you know, growing up in religion, you're told to thank God for your food. But when you actually thank your food for the nourishment, it responds in a way like it becomes more accepting of its fate. So eat, you know, eat your vegetables or whatever, just in your mind, thank them for the nourishment they're going to provide to you, and they will be totally okay with living on through you. They will accept that fate, and I thought that was really wild. So it's almost like intention, and that was one of the things. I think I might have been mistaken about this a while back when I was like, you know, it just doesn't seem to matter who you pray to. If you pray to the angels, God, Jesus, or whatever, it doesn't seem to matter. I realized, I believe it could be what you're praying for. So, for instance, say there's a wife who gets abused by her husband, right? And in one instance, I'll use Jesus for an example. She prays to Jesus. She says, you know, her husband leaves. She says, Lord, just take him, you know, have him die in a car accident or something. Well, that's not a good intention, right? That's kind of wishing something bad on someone. So whether you're praying to Jesus or God or something, that wouldn't be in the will of an almighty Father God, or whatever you want to call it, a higher, good, loving being. That would be asking for, you know, something bad to happen to someone. So I believe it's actually your intention. Is your intention in line with what, in line with love or in line with hate? That would be, even though she's suffering or whatever. Now take that same example. Say she prays, you know, Jesus, take me. I can't stand to be in this abusive relationship anymore. Now that's sort of the selfless prayer where she's just wanting to be taken out of it, but it doesn't involve, you know, wishing something bad on someone else. Then I think it goes to the right place. So I almost feel like it's just your intention. You know, do you have good, loving intentions? It'll go to the right place. Do you have selfish, hateful intentions? Then it's going to go to the wrong place. Whether you say Jesus, God, or anything to begin with. You know what I mean? So I feel like just be mindful of what you're asking for. You know, even if you take an example like winning the lottery, if you ask to win the lottery so you can have more stuff, more possessions, or if you ask to win the lottery because you see there's a lot of people in need and you would want to go out and feed the poor and stuff like that, I think, you know, that's where that's what directs your prayer or your intention to the right source, is that just, you know, your intentions involved with it. And that's sort of why I have this feeling about, you notice just as I paused it, he said, not only the intention, but the attention. I feel like when we point our attention at CERN as being the cause of these Mandela effects, we might actually be fueling their equipment to do whatever they're trying to do at CERN. Now, like I said before, I know they're up to something. I just don't feel like they would be causing changes that don't make them any money. I mean, we've seen that they almost look like they're trying to make themselves look like they're the cause of this. And, you know, when I was on with UniRock, he had this pamphlet from way back in the day, and it had, I don't know, 3 or 4 of the Mandela effects in the pamphlet. It had like a Darth Vader, it had like a Alice in Wonderland. I can't even remember all of them, but oh, the mirror on the wall one. So, and then there's that happy video. I know most people have seen the happy video where it's got, you know, that guy in the at CERN, and he's got Mandela hanging around his neck. He's got like it says Mandela on one thing, and then above that it says Bond number 1. Well, I don't know if you guys know this. Bond number 1 was the first James Bond. His name, I don't remember if it's first or his last name, but it was Nelson. So right there, Nelson Mandela, right around the guy's neck. Now, I know people will say, well, that's proof that they're the ones doing it. But I feel like they want you to think they're the one doing it, because they understand how when you put your focus on them, thinking they're doing it, fearing what they're doing, worried about what they're doing, you're directing this energy the same way these plants are feeling this energy. You're directing this energy, and we could be fueling their equipment to open up these doorways to a dark side or something. I don't really know, but I know that the changes, at least in my life, have been an awakening process. They have pointed me towards just a life full of things that have been preparing me for this moment right now in my life. So let me get back to the video, because I think this global they call it the Global Consciousness Project, I feel like is a huge part of the puzzle here of how things work.
If we can think of that as not simply being in your head, but being out there as well, then when you attend to something, it changes, and it changes in a direction of coherence. So if the target of your attention is randomness, then a cohered random system is, by definition, more orderly, becomes ordered. And so you can detect that order through statistics easily. So he started doing experiments where he'd take a random number generator, an electronic circuit, and put it in the vicinity of a group that was meditating, thinking that this would create a large amount of coherent attention. Sometimes people knew the random generator was there, and sometimes they didn't know. And he wanted to see whether the randomness would become orderly during the meditation. And after hundreds of such tests by Roger and me and a bunch of our colleagues, we came to the conclusion that it does become less random in a context where we can infer that there's mental coherence going on, sometimes due only to attention. So I think it was 1994, I did an experiment before, during, and after the announcement of the O.J. Simpson verdict in his murder trial. And this was a unique period in history in that it was the first time that I'm aware of, in modern time anyway, first time where there's actually one other I can think of, which was landing on the moon, but a first instance where hundreds of millions of people around the world knew that something interesting was going to happen at a stroke of a couple of seconds in the future. It was a reading of a verdict which would either say guilty or not guilty. And so imagine the amount of attention that's slowly focusing up to that moment. I figured this would make a great experiment, because I could have a whole bunch of random number generators going, and we can look in time sequence what is happening to the randomness as we approach the moment of announcement of the verdict, where we have maybe 1 billion people paying attention to it. So I did that. I had 5 random number generators going, 4 in the US and 1 in Europe, and tracked what was happening to the randomness as we got closer and closer to the verdict and the verdict being read and afterwards. And we found very clear evidence that there was a sudden peak in order in the random generators within seconds of the verdict being read. And of course, it was being read live and carried around the world on radio and television all over the place. So it was a live event worldwide. So so Roger and I and a few colleagues were discussing this. We later had another instance where Princess Diana was killed in a car crash, and her funeral was scheduled a week in advance. So we figured we can use that as another example of lots of attention around the world for one event. And we got, I think, 12 of us around the world got our random number generators going, and we analyzed the result, and again, was significant deviation from randomness towards order during the period of the funeral, when lots of people were watching. And we thought, well, this is great. This is an interesting experiment, but we had to go through a lot of work to get everybody to participate at the same time. So we decided to create a system that would be completely automatically running 24/7 with random number generators located in places around the world. So today, as of today, the project is going for 10 years. There's roughly 70 random generators in cities around the world, and it's been running for pretty much continuously for 10 years. So the most dramatic event that occurred, and oh, by the way, the reason we did this is because we knew that events would occur that we couldn't predict, and that would attract a lot of attention. We wanted to see what would happen under those cases. So the best example and the worst case was 9/11. So 9/11 was not predicted as far as most people knew. And we had 37 random number generators, maybe 36 or 37 running at that time. And we were then able to look and see what was happening to randomness before, during, and after 9/11. And we subsequently, a bunch of us did an analysis, and we published it in Foundations of Physics Letters, which is a physics journal. Because what we found was unmistakable evidence that the randomness in all 36 generators went away. Slightly before 9/11, at 9/11, a little bit after, and then it went back to baseline. So you have a baseline randomness statistically. You have 9/11 approaching about 2 or 3 hours before 9/11. The whole system, the whole random system became orderly. And then 9/11 occurred, and it went through all kinds of strange random or non-random effects, and then it balanced out after a while and went back to being orderly. So this is one of now over 200 such events, things like gigantic tsunamis, earthquakes, political events, the death of celebrities, unexpected things. Those kind of events go into our database. And what we do then is we have this ongoing, continuous random stream from around the world. We have a formal way of saying, well, this event is either predicted or an event occurs, and we go back later and we analyze the result through a standard method that we use. And we can see whether this worldwide random system is behaving randomly or not. And when you look at composite over the 200-some events, the odds against chance are over 1,000,000 to 1 now. So we have good statistical reasons to believe that the random generators are not behaving randomly when there are large-scale events that attract a lot of attention. At this point, we don't know then which direction the arrow of causation goes. We don't know whether it's simply a lot of human minds that are somehow changing randomness, or whether this is a reflection of something bigger, something like a collective mind, of which the collective mind attends to something, and collective mind includes everything else, including what we think of as matter and energy. And so the attention, the change that we see in randomness may be the same in some way. It's the same kind of organizing event that changes random events. It also changes our attention. But again, I don't know which direction the arrow of causation goes, and maybe it's so complex there is no single arrow. Maybe some giant system of some type.
All right. Busy chatting away. Time got away. So this is the website for the Global Consciousness Project. And this is showing how all the places you see these little yellow dots here is where they have these random number generators that are running 24/7. And whenever there's something happening, in fact, you can look over here, the latest events. It says, let me scoot this over a little bit. It says Obama's farewell address, Trump's inauguration, the Women's March in Washington. So there's different events that show up, and they cause the random number generators to display anomalies, which is really wild because it's showing how we are all tapped into this consciousness together. And when we experience something together, it shows up on their equipment. Minus this out. So I think this goes to show just how much our intention is reflected into the reality that we experience. And you can see why they wouldn't want to have us know about this, because oh yeah, I appreciate that. Just the fact that we know how much power, if we know how much power we have, then we can actually start to make changes in the reality, and they want to be in control. So if they can keep us in this lower thinking, in this fear, then we're not thinking with our higher mind. We're sort of on the defensive. And as long as you're on the defensive, you're not on the offensive. The offensive is when you're actually taking a part in the reality that's being created. So I think that's been the biggest wake-up call for this whole Mandela effect. All right, England. Oh, Diane, I was sitting there thinking about you when I saw England, and it is you. So glad you could join. It's getting pretty late in the day there too, isn't it? So, yeah, it's so funny that I did this video a while back about Ariana Grande, and, you know, had all these people. The video was pretty much just about the false flag thing going on or whatever. And me and Diane were sort of on opposite sides, but I had to step in and sort of take it up for her because people were just being so mean and ruthless. That's why I stay away from the false flag stuff now, because it just, I don't know, it seems like it brings out a lot of people that I was just having to moderate that video for so long. And yeah, it was, but I told her the other day, I'm like, you're my silver lining with that video. I'm so glad I met her because she's such a sweet person. And that was the one good thing that came out of that video I did, even though it had like 70-something thousand views. So it did real well, but because of the topic, I couldn't monetize it. So it's not like it helped out at all with any of that. So but that's really cool. Yeah, and I want to thank you guys. It looks like somebody donated 20. That's awesome. That really helps out. And tremendously. You have no idea. Because I've been doing this, I've done almost 100 videos now, and I just made my first $100 from YouTube. So for those who think that this is a lucrative business, maybe if I had 1 million subscribers, I could make some money. But as it is right now, I still got to go quit and do some jobs here and there. And so, yeah, that definitely helps every little bit. And I've reduced my cost of living too. So it does help to, when people pitch in like that, it definitely does. You guys are awesome. And just even chiming in and let me know how much it helps you out. I love when people leave comments like that, because that's really what I'm doing it for. And it's so amazing. That's how I know that the higher power is one of love, because there is just something so satisfying about helping people out. I mean, more than money could ever make you feel. There's just, when you're able to step in and really make someone's day, or, you know, set someone's mind at ease about something, there's just nothing. It's just so fulfilling to me as a human. And I know that it's just designed that way. That's why I know that there's definitely some higher power. You know, I'll be on the fence about what it is, but there's something there, because my whole life has been, I don't know, it's just been laid out. It's been plotted out. I can look back and I can see it now. I can see how everything has been leading up to this moment. And it's just been a real emotional roller coaster ride, as, you know, these things are revealed to me. Like, and, you know, I don't believe in coincidences. I've been getting all sorts of synchronicities. Me and José were just talking about this earlier, how just all these synchronicities with the clock, and, you know, like coming across, say, like Everyday Masters. I came across his video right in the beginning when I was sort of out and getting tossed about, and he was one of the main reasons why I started putting a positive look at this. And once I opened myself up to the possibility that this was a good thing, man, it was like the floodgates opened. It's like the veil started getting torn down, and all this other stuff that I've been showing you today that I'd come across before, but it just didn't quite make sense. It went into my didn't make sense pile, like the Mandela Effect. But clearly, you know, once you experience the Mandela Effect, and it's so impossible of things, just the way things are changing, it forces you to go back to the drawing board and say, hey, you know, things are different than what I thought, you know, and sort of just kind of wipe the slate clean and start all over again. What do I really know here? I know that different key events in my life happened that are all coming out right now, back to my memory. That book, Milton the Early Riser, about this panda bear. It was my favorite book. My mom would read me. You know, it just seemed so insignificant. I totally forgot about the book. And then one day, after this all started happening, and I started realizing I was doing what that little panda bear was doing, trying to wake people up, and everyone was sleeping. In the book, that's the whole book is about this panda bear going and trying to wake all the other animals up, because he woke up earlier than all the other ones, and he's trying to wake them up. And that was, you know, my whole life waking up and early before my family. I mean, it's been sort of a theme in my life. And then who would have thought the Rodin's thinker statue, my mom, we got it at like a garage sale, you know, and who would have thought that would have played such a big part of my life, you know? Another one was The Never-Ending Story. The way that whole movie is about the nothing trying to take over Fantasia. Well, some of the Mandela Effect changes I've come across, like Rodin's thinker statue, the way he shifted completely to his left, the way the cheat to the off. You got the American Gothic painting where the lady on the right is now facing left. And all of these things were pointing to the fact that we've moved from our right side of our brain to our left brain, where everything has to be logical. And we've gotten away from the right brain, which is the imagination, the fantasy, the godlike brain, the thinking about others, and all of that. And that's what that movie, The Never-Ending Story, was about. And then within that same movie, you've got these three layers of sort of a matrix reality, where the people watching the movie is watching this boy who's reading this book. So you got like these three levels of realities, but they are all interacting in a way. And it was just powerful to me, because as all this is being revealed, I mean, who would have thought that movie, The Never-Ending Story, would mean more to me now than as a kid when I just fell in love with it, you know? And I gotta admit, I was watching it and I was like crying, and as these things were, I was realizing these things, and I know I didn't just come up with this stuff myself, you know, because it was just such a revelation. And then, you know, just to be sort of a confirmation that it's not just something I'm thinking up and just making up in my mind. I get synchronicities all the time, you know, where I'll look down at the clock or 333 or something just to grab my attention. 1111 happens a lot. And so yeah, I think it's a important thing to consider when you know, it's not all coming from my mind, because so many of these things I couldn't have thought of myself, you know. So I want to encourage you all that you know, even though we do have all this bad news in there, find the silver lining in it, you know. I think if you know people in some of these areas where there's, you know, hurricanes or wildfires, and you have extra room, and it, you know, friends or family or whatever, just give them a call. They might not want to ask, but if you call them and let them know, hey, you got a place for them to stay for a couple days or something like that, they might take you up on it, and that's how you can be helpful, you know. But besides that, just you know, don't resonate in fear. Just know that you're feeding whatever it is they're up to when you're sitting there worried about things. Just get excited that changes are on the way, that things are changing. And, you know, so many people are feel like they're in such a prison with work and just the grind of working and stuff all the time that, you know, when they hear about a hurricane or a wildfire, their first thought is, oh my gosh, am I going to get a couple of days off work? You know, what a prison for you to think something like that, right? So be encouraged, and just know that we do have, there is a higher force looking out for us, you know, and I don't have all the answers of what it is, but I know there's something there, and it's, it seems to be love and light, and that's why I always leave love and light after my comments, because I feel like as I'm on here and you know, I'm beaming the light and love to you guys while I share my story, you guys, you know, beam it back to me, and you beam it to others, and we're spreading this all over the globe. I mean, just this whole YouTube medium and all the other video and ways for us to connect are actually spreading the love. And you know, I've even got it for myself watching videos, my old videos, and I'll get it right back for myself. How is that possible? You know, because it's not really me. It's really, I'm just sort of like the moon reflects the light of the sun. I'm just reflecting the light of the higher love power out to you guys, and it can even, I can bounce it back to myself watching videos later, so I know it's not me. It's so just be encouraged, spread the love and the light, and I do appreciate you guys helping me out here, Salted Cedar and José and everybody for hopping in here. I will join in with the comments here in a second. Did I miss any questions? Let me look through here really quick, just to make sure. I think I caught everything. But let's see. Mona Lisa never smiled. Yeah, that's definitely that was, some of them are creepy, aren't they? I mean, you it's like, I remember debating with people whether she was smiling or not, because her mouth was kind of smiling, but her eyes were definitely not smiling. Now you look at it and the eyes look like they're smiling. It almost looked like somebody gave her a dupe or something. And you know, at first when I thought of time travel, I'm like, did somebody travel back in time and give her a dupe before he did the painting this time? That's so funny. I'm gonna do a quick shout out. Hope I don't miss anybody here. Zark, Blue, Isaac, Wayward Son, thanks for joining. Diane again, good to see you here. One, be safe. He's down in Florida. Our thoughts and prayers with you. Seeker of Truth, thank you for making it this time. Sacred Appleseed, thanks so much. Lo-Fi. Tracy, thank your food before you eat it now. Arthur. Devil Walker. Keep on stomping those devils. Douglas DeLay, thank you so much for the $20 gift. I will certainly pay it forward. That is just more to help me stay on the air and not have to take breaks to go do work. Because people think that I do this, do YouTube for money, but I actually don't do YouTube for money. I have to quit doing YouTube to go make money to pay bills. Schizo, thank you. Jumping in here. And if I missed anybody, I'm totally sorry. I really appreciate every single one of you guys. It really encourages me that you guys took the time out to stop in here. Jamie, oh, we got the green man. You made it in. Greetings, my friend. You might have to catch the bulk of this on the flip side, but yeah, I think this was a good one because it sort of brings together. Greg Oliver, thank you for dropping in. Elias, thank you. Once again, I want to thank everybody for stopping in. I'll hop into the chat here as soon as I go off the air and chat with you guys a little bit longer. But until the next time, I will see you guys. You guys have a good one.
Mm-hmm.